So what I'm trying to show here today is this eye shader that I've got going here. It's really a gorgeous shader. I had something I thought was pretty good, and I made it when I was using Blender 3.1, but recently I upgraded to Blender 4.0 here. And in 4.0, the principled shader is different. And so the eyes, everything wasn't looking correct. But when I went to go fix the eyes, I changed a couple things around. And what I ended up with is just looking beautiful here. So this is a view that hasn't got um, any widgets or anything else in the way. It's just the eyes here. And so let's take that and move it around a little bit. So a little bit looking more straight on. So when you're looking straight into her eyes, the lights glint off of them and light them up really well. And when you're looking on the side, they get much more dull, and especially in the shadows. If there are shadows, there's no light glinting off of them. So it gives a really beautiful look, makes her look quite alive. Let's see here. This is in the look dev. Here it's much less clear because I don't have any lights shining directly on her. It's just kind of a general light coming from everywhere. It's when you actually have some lights that are shining on her face that this gorgeous look comes. So let's take a look at what that shader is, right? Like what's making that happen there. Let's put all that in solid mode here. I've got a shader tab here. So let's come and take a look at her eyes. So I click her eye here. All right, that's the shader for the eye. Now, as you can see, let's just only look at the eye here. As you can see, what I do is I take the UV texture coordinates, put it into this mapping node here, put that into this noise texture here, and because I have the scale of X and Y at some larger value and the Z is only 1, then what that ends up doing is causing a texture to do this right here. You've got those lines coming out there. And the reason why those lines do like they do is because of the UVs. So actually, before we get into the shader, I suppose let's go ahead and take a look at the UVs here. So let's highlight every vertex, I suppose, face on here and see what we've got. So as you can see, there's something very square going on here. But what's really important is that if I take these rings of the iris here, come on, highlight a ring. There we go. If I take these rings of the iris here, you'll see they're very squished here, so they're very rectangular and in this case quite wide and not very tall. And as I highlight more of them, they start going back to more square, so everything outside of there gets more square. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that noise texture, and if we squeeze these rings on the UVs very tightly like this on the one axis and not the other, then we'll get lines when we're looking at it in a rendered view. So those lines are just coming from a noise texture. Now her eyes, I've got them in a cat configuration right now. That's using some simple deforms. That's actually not the purpose of this video here. The purpose of the video is just the shader, but if you look at my channel, you'll actually find how I do that. So I'm not going to go into that detail here. So let's get back out of that. Let's go back to the shader here. Let's take a look at what that is. And I suppose if I show rendered, because I've isolated it, it's got no lights, you can't quite see. It's not very beautiful. So because I have that noise texture there like that, and if I unplug that, you'll see that things get very boring. So you need to have the mapping here of the UV going into the noise texture. Next up, I'm going to multiply. So this noise texture is just a very light colored texture. So I'm going to multiply it by color attribute, just whatever the default color attribute is of the eye. And so I can change the colors by say picking a different thing. So like here's a violet, here's a navy, here's brown, here's green. So I have different colors. Let's pick say olive here. Right. So I guess the important thing is as I pick the color attributes, that's what comes in here. I multiply those together completely and pass that into a hue saturation value. So here what I'm doing is I'm saturating it a bit more because the multiplying of here kind of remove some of the saturation. I really crank up the value because the noise texture is just, it's a based gray, right? So when I take gray and then multiply it by this color, it's going to be quite dark. Another way you could do that is just make sure this noise texture is brighter. So I could put something that makes that noise texture brighter here, then I wouldn't have to bring it up here, but it doesn't matter either place. And as you can see, I've got that at a factor of 1. All right, the hue, no change. That's what 0.5 means there. So then I mix those. Let's move this up here so we can see. So I do a color mix of both of these things. Wait, why is that happening? I think this is something that Blender added in when I upgraded to Blender 4. I don't see what that matters. There may be something about this clamp factor. So let's just say I don't understand what this node is, but basically we're just taking that color and passing it through into the base color. Then I take the actual color. It looks like I ignored this Blender thing when I added this bit, but I also need to send it into the specular and the sheen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the eye fairly metallic, right? 0.75 here, roughness 0.395, index of refraction is 1.4, alpha is just it's completely opaque. That's what one means here. And then the subsurface, I do a GGX with an index of refraction of 0.5. I send the color of this into the tint here, and the tint it's a specular tint, right? The anisotropic and rotation 0, 0, I don't care about anisotropic for this one. So that's what I'm doing with the specular portion of it. Transmission, nothing, there's no transmission. Coat, nothing, weight 0, there's nothing to do with the coat there. Sheen is where a little bit of that beautiful side color comes in. So there I'm giving it a 0.5 weight and roughness, sending the color into the tint there. Emission also, strength 0.05, I don't think that matters. I'm going to actually turn that down to 0. So emission, nothing. And so if I take all those bits together and just send them out to the output of the material, it looks like that. It is quite a beautiful thing there. So it's, there we go. Super happy with this eye shader right now. Whenever I'm looking at her and we see her iris is looking straight on, it's just beautiful, the glow that I get on there. So super happy with this, and I'm hoping I can share it with you and that you'll enjoy that shader. There's a bunch of other shaders on her, but eyes are going to be one of the first things people know on your character. So you really want to have a good one there, and I'm super happy with it. So all right, one last time, that's kind of what it is right there. It's a very simple setup, I think, and it also allows you very quickly to change the color of the eye. You just change the color attributes, and then you can go in and you can paint the irises however you want. So let's actually take a look at how it looks in the workspace mode. So as you can see, when I painted this, I actually did some vertex painting. There's some lighter blue, some white, some darker blue, and some kind of lines going out. And then at the edge of the iris on all of the different colors, I make a darker colored ring around it. I really like the look of that when I do that. And every one of these you can see has that little darker ring around the side there. Around the side, around the edge. This is a really strange vertex painting. Makes for a very strange look here on her eyes, calling it demon. As you can see, similar to before, similar to others, that the way the reflections get caught in her eye is just beautiful. It makes this really strange vertex coloring actually kind of nice. Let's put it back to ice, because ice is what she's supposed to be. That's her natural eye color right there. I suppose we could look at what it looks like if we pick some of the other colors in the render mode. So here's green. Again, you look where the shadow falls, it's almost black there. Where the light hits it, very nice green. And I suppose if you zoom in, you look, yeah, it's almost black from a distance. What you can see, there's like some of those colors just kind of going into the shadows. It's just beautiful. So happy with that shader. I don't know if I could have had this in Blender 3.6 or Blender 3.1, which is what I was using before, and I just didn't think of it. And maybe when I revisited it here in Blender 4, it's way better, or possibly the BSDF node is much better in Blender 4.0. And I suspect it's actually that it's a better node and that you actually can't get quite this look in Blender 3. I suspect you've got to get to Blender 4 to get that kind of look on the eye with a principal BSDF node. And here we are looking at the blue eyes. Oh man, it's gorgeous. Dark blue. Let's take a look at the brown eyes here. Wow. I wish I could take credit for what happened here. It was kind of a happy accident. I suppose most of this I had figured out, but just kind of the way I set up the weights of the amount of metallic and roughness, the index of refraction, and playing around with some values when I eventually came up with this, I was like, wow, that's great. I don't know how physically correct this is. I suspect it's actually not very physically correct at all, but it definitely makes for a great great look on a stylized character like this. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.